All right. I think this thing's on. I think we're good to go. Ricky, you good to go?
Good to go.
All right. Sweet. All right. So NBA Media Day was yesterday, or for most teams. There were a few teams that had it last week. The Bulls were one of the teams that had it yesterday. Media Day is usually just a whole goofy business with cliched press conferences, silly pictures, that whole business. But Ricky had the honor of going to it yesterday. So he got to take in the whole thing. So I guess just Ricky, if you just wanted to talk about a little about what it was like being there, what was really notable about being there, anything that really caught your attention, just anything that anybody said that was interesting.
Yeah, this is the first time the Bulls have let me into Media Day. I think I've been denied by them like 4 years in a row. So finally, Bloggable is gaining some street cred. They know who we are. They probably don't know who we are, but they finally let after I basically just bugged them to make it happen. I love going to events like this because I think that it's super cool to just walk around and be able to sort of talk to the players individually when you can grab them on the side and just sort of observe how they act when they're sort of, I don't know, when they're not, in like a super serious practice mode and they're not exhausted, it's not right after the game or whatever. This was kind of boring, I thought, though. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but the way it ran was basically started off with just straight press conferences all the way through. So it went Gar, he talked for 15 minutes, Thibodeau talked for 15 minutes, D. Rose talked for 15 minutes, and then it went Noah and then Powell. So that was essentially the bulk of Media Day. By the time Powell was done, I looked around, and pretty much everyone was gone at that point. Some of the role players, like McDermott, some of the rookies, they were doing like funny short bits for either the video board or like just whatever stuff like that. But like there wasn't really much time where you can just like grab them, pull them off to the side, and ask them a few questions. I waited for McDermott for a while to ask him a couple things for a story idea I have, and I just couldn't get to him because Rose started talking, and it was just sort of impossible. So overall, I mean, it was cool to go to. I don't think it was the most interesting thing in the world. But there were some quotes that caught my eye. We can talk about a few of them right now. I mean, the most notable thing probably, let's start off with Noah, because Gar said that Noah has not played basketball in terms of 5-on-5 or scrimmages since he suffered the knee injury. When Noah was talking about the knee injury, he said that he felt terrible last year. I think his direct quote was, "I felt terrible last year. I feel a lot better now." And he said it with a smile on his face, like he was like in some extreme pain. Like the obvious follow-up question there is, well, when did you feel this pain? Why didn't you, why did Thibodeau continue to play you so much after the pain struck? Because obviously, if you think back to the end of last year, Noah was a top 5 MVP finisher, which is just insane to me. And then he got totally outplayed by Nene, and the Bulls got smoked in 5 games by the Wizards. So clearly Noah wasn't at his 100% health, I think. At the time, we thought that it was a scheming thing the Wizards were doing, which I'm sure was some of it, in terms of pressuring Noah when he had the ball to sort of limit some of his passing options. While I do think that certainly still played a factor, after hearing Noah yesterday, I think that he was more injured than we let on. And we know Noah's just always so full of energy and thinks of himself as such a tough dude that he wasn't going to, show that he was really injured, and it turns out he was. Like he kept talking about yesterday. He's like, this is the first time I've ever had knee surgery in my career. It sucks, but it's just something I'm going to have to deal with. Like it really, like I guess from a perspective of fandom, we think like, dude gets hurt, dude has surgery, now the guy is fine. There's no like he should be. But really, like stuff like knee injuries, knee surgeries.
Tricky. I mean, we know all about it.
Noah's had so many lower body injuries from his ankle to his feet, now his knee. That shit really takes a toll on you. And the guy's going to be 30 years old this year. I think it's something to monitor going forward. Like, I hope we still have the same old Joakim Noah, but I think both of us know that excellence in basketball is a very fragile thing. And, who knows how long the Joakim Noah of the last few years is still going to be around and kicking.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point about how he was probably might have been hiding how injured he was. I mean, that that Game 5 against the Wizards, I mean, I was there. It was painfully obvious how hurt he was. The dude was basically dragging around on the court on one leg. He could barely move. So, like, yeah, I mean, he was clearly dying, and not dying literally, but just really laboring out there on the court. So, yeah, I mean, it was clear he was really hurt. And I think it is kind of, in terms of just, like, moving forward, too, it is concerning about just the history of lower body injuries, because this is something I've brought up on multiple occasions, that, like, he's been hurt. Like, I feel like the end of the season, the last 3 or 4 years, he's been hurt. We go back last year, the knee surgery against the Nets. I mean, the Heat, he battled through that. He had an awesome Game 7. He had plantar fasciitis. The year before that was when Rose first got hurt against the Sixers, and he had that nasty ankle injury when Tibbs threw him out there after that, and that was really painful to watch. And then I don't even remember if he was actually injured or not in that Eastern. Was he healthy in the Eastern Conference Finals? I can't remember. I feel like he was probably dealing with something.
Yeah, it seemed like the whole team was dealing with something back then. Honestly, that seems like so long ago. It's tough for me to even remember the specifics of it. I just remember my general sadness mostly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But just like the bigger point, it's like the guy has not been able to stay healthy the last few years. So it's really concerning when just all these things add up. So hopefully he's got the surgery, and hopefully with some sufficient rehab and some rest, that and hopefully with the newfound depth that we supposedly have, that Tibbs will be able to do a better job of limiting his minutes and keeping him around 31, 32 a game, so he could be more fresh for the postseason, because obviously the Bulls want to win it all. They need Joakim Noah to be playing really well. But also, one other thing I guess about this injury is Noah is definitely prone to the slow starts. We've seen that. So I feel like if he gets off to a really bad start to the season, it's really not that big a deal to worry about. Just hopefully usually it takes him a month or two to get back into it, so hopefully by then he'll be ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, someone noted this on Twitter yesterday, but it does seem like Noah starts off slowly every year, doesn't it? And he always tends to get back in shape. And that, again, goes to your point that he never finishes seasons healthy. He's always sort of playing catch-up, using the early portion of the season to get healthy and to get back in shape. Now, I will say that, like, one thing I've really learned since Thibodeau's become the Bulls coach is that I put very little value in the regular season, and that goes doubly this year. Like, honestly, everyone knows it's too goddamn long. That, you go from playing, 30 games a year in high school. I know all those top guys have AAU schedules, and you play 40 games a year in college. But, like, to go 82 games and then plus 3 goddamn months of playoffs is just, like, so ridiculous. So, for me, my mindset going into this season is that I'm not going to overreact to what I see in the regular season one way or another. Maybe if it's, like, strong individual performances, let's say, like, Jimmy starts kicking ass, cool, I'm with that. But, like, if Rose is struggling, if Noah's struggling, I mean, like, whatever. I'm not going to get too worked up about it. We know the Bulls are a great regular season team.
Yeah, they're going to win. They're going to win, like, at least 55, 60 games if they stay mostly healthy this year. Like, that's going to happen. It's going to happen for, like, this is how they do. They won 50 games last year almost. Did they get to 50? They were close to 50 with Rose basically on the shelf the entire year. I guess they were pretty lucky with injuries besides that, but still, they won almost 50 games without their best player, but then we saw what happened in the playoffs. The Wizards basically just kicked their ass, and, like, it didn't even matter. So, yeah, we can't freak out over winning 60, 55 games. Even though I said I did a podcast outside for the Bulls show that the Bulls will probably beat the Cavs in that first game of the year at home, and then people will be proclaiming them the favorites to win it all. Like, that's definitely going to happen. I'm almost guaranteeing it. We just can't get too wrapped up in the regular season stuff for sure.
Yeah, but I also sort of feel like at the very beginning of every bowl season, like literally the first 5 games, they kind of suck. Like, remember when they just got curb stomped by the Heat last year?
Last year, yeah.
And the Heat were just ripping corner threes the whole time. It wasn't competitive whatsoever. I don't know. So, all right, whatever. So that's like my one thing with that. We got some Twitter questions. They're actually good Twitter questions, which... Thank you.
Sometimes it's a shock.
So let's just spit some of these out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So Here's a good one. I like this question. This is from a dude named Ben. He says, who do you predict will be the second leading scorer on the team, assuming Derek is number one?
I mean, I would almost have to think Powell, right? I mean, Powell's obviously he's still talented offensively. He put up 17 a game last year on a bad Lakers team that scored a decent amount of points but couldn't do anything else right. I mean, if you go through it, Noah's never going to be a guy that scores that much. Taj got better offensively, but I don't know if he'll be putting up enough because I feel like that second one, I guess it'll be really close between Taj, Powell, like Jimmy. I don't know if Jimmy will have enough because his role we think will be a little less, but if he shoots better, maybe. So I guess I would go with Powell.
Powell is the second leading scorer. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, I want to say Dang, but he's not on the team anymore, so I don't really know what to say here. I remember last year the Spurs had this thing where they had 8 guys over average 8 points a game. I believe that's the correct statistic, and it was like the first time that's ever happened or some shit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bulls really try to mimic that, where, like, let's say Rose leads the team in scoring. I don't even want to put a number out there, but I'm going to do it. Let's say 21 points a game, 20 points a game, whatever it is. The guys who fall in beneath that are probably going to be at, like, you know, Jimmy averaged 13 last year, correct? And he was bad. Yeah. So I would expect Jimmy, you know, if we're thinking he's going to be better this year, he should at least average 14, 15. So I guess I'll say Jimmy is the second leading scorer. One main reason, he's going to fucking play the entire game. Like, there's no way around it. I'm
not sure that's going to happen. It shouldn't happen. I don't know. I mean, I guess Tibbs might rely on him like he did with Dang, because even when the Bulls did have the bench mob in 2010, 2011, around those years, Dang did still play like 40 minutes a game. So maybe he'll do that same thing where Butler plays the whole first quarter and then plays like the first 6 minutes of the second quarter, just like Dang did with the bench mob. I kind of hope not because, and I'm still not sure, because even at the start of last year, Jimmy did play like I think 30 minutes a game, and then he got hurt, and then Dang got traded, and then it was basically like 42 minutes a game from there. I'm hoping that that's not the case. The story I wrote the other day about Jimmy, looking at some of the numbers, just like how he was so much worse in the second and fourth quarters than he was the start games, and you could say maybe fatigue had something to do with it. Who knows? I feel like it might have, but I'm just hoping, for the love of God, that we don't see him out there playing entire second halves like every damn game.
Yeah, like that's the thing. The Bulls have some depth this year, but even when they had crazy good depth back in the day during Thibodeau's first 2 years, like Dang was still the captain of the bench mob. Everyone else would come out, Dang would stay in the whole time, and then he'd get his first breather, I think, at the end of the second quarter, and then wouldn't come out again the entire game.
No, it was pretty much, he would play definitely like the whole first quarter and play like the first half at the second quarter, and then he would finally come out. And then he would come back in at the end of the first half too, so I don't know. We'll see. I guess I feel like at this point with the depth that they supposedly have, Jimmy shouldn't play that much. But then again, I guess it's all kind of on paper at this point because Doug still has to prove himself as being capable of playing at least defense at NBA level. I feel like the shooting will come around. And Tony Snell still has to prove himself as well because I was kind of calling for Snell to play more last year and Jimmy to play less. But Tibbs obviously didn't trust Snell, and he wasn't very good. His shot was not that. It was inconsistent. He showed some flashes of being a decent pick and roll ball handler. I know you like to call Snell one of the better ball handlers on the team. That's because the Bulls really don't have many ball handlers. But I mean, if they prove themselves capable of Doug, Snell, if they prove themselves capable of being at least competent NBA players, I feel like that should hopefully limit Jimmy's minutes a little bit.
All right, well, let's get one more on Jimmy. Some dude says, will Jimmy's contract extension be a big issue if he doesn't take a step up, basically? So let's talk about this. We're all sort of debating what Jimmy's going to get coming into this year, if they're going to sign him to an early extension or not. Here's my question for you, Jason. If Jimmy repeats the exact same numbers, how much would he sign for on the open market?
So we're saying he gets to restricted free agency, and
he does exactly what he did last year.
I would say something like maybe $7 million, 6, 7, maybe $8 million, like Avery Bradley. I don't know. I mean, those numbers are pretty bad. You're shooting sub 30%. I mean, there's something to be said about how good of a defender he is. I mean, the guy can guard LeBron. He is one of the second-team all-defense. So there's obviously value there, but if he really is as one-dimensional as he kind of was a lot of the times this year, I mean, you can't overpay a guy like that. So it's kind of tough to say. Like if he shoots 40%, 40, if he goes like 40, 30, 80 again with his slash, like I don't know how you can give him much more than maybe a little more than, like I said, a mid-level deal, like 7, 8 million, like at the most. But then, I mean, what do you think?
I think that's fucking crazy. Give him 7 or 8 million a year. If he's going to shoot under 40% from the field and under 30% for three, that's cool that he's a good athlete. It's great, legitimately great that he can D up as well as he can, especially when the Bulls have LeBron in the division now. And like just every good team has a badass wing scorer, so you're going to need someone to defend those guys. And if the Bulls don't have Jimmy, I don't know who they have behind him. That said, I think that the numbers he put up last year and the way he played, he's probably a $5 million a year player. Like, what's the difference?
I guess you go with the mid-level, which is basically between 5 and 6.
All right, so what's the difference between Jimmy and, like, Al-Farouq Aminu?
I don't know. Jimmy can get to the line really well.
Well, right. So, like, Jimmy might be a little better, but, like, if I'm going to pay Jimmy $8 million, I'd rather pay Al-Farouq, what'd he get, $2 or $3 million? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, if we're looking at it in terms of, like, the Bulls, like, I mean, I don't even know if that's different than just, like, another team who's, like, desperate for something, like, overpaying on the market. Like, I mean, so say, like, okay, say he has another poor year or whatever, and he's some team signs him to, like, a 4-year, $32 million offer sheet. Would you just not match it? What would you do there?
If some team signed Jimmy to a 4-year, well, I mean, like, what? It depends what he does. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. If he has another like bad to mediocre season, like, would you try to work out like a sign and trade? I mean, would you just be like, all right, we can't pay this kind of guy this type of money, or would you just kind of bite the bullet with the cap going up that his defense is worth enough where you can overpay him a little bit because you don't know how you're going to replace him otherwise?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, that's why like this is just a tough situation with him. That's what I wrote like 2,500 words about his whole deal. Just because there's so many kind of factors that play into that with him. It'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, I cannot see him being as bad as he was last year again. Like I feel like he showed enough the first couple of years where like he's not I don't think he'll ever be a great offensive player, but I feel like he could be enough where he can at least be a legitimate 3-and-D guy. Maybe shoot 35% from three. Maybe shoot like 43, 44% overall, get to the line a decent amount, which helps with efficiency. I mean, if he has a season like that, and I mean, I think you pay him, like I said, $9, $10 million, and you're fine with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we can both agree that this is not going to get solved right now. So let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's talk about the rotation. So Thibodeau had an interesting quote yesterday that is probably the least surprising thing Tom Thibodeau could ever say. He said that if you look back at the past champions in NBA history, you'll never see a team that had 2 rookies in the rotation. This is of course relevant because 2 of the Bulls' major offseason acquisitions were Doug McDermott and Nikola Mirotic, who are both nominally rookies. However, both are also old. Doug McDermott is the rare first-round draft pick who played 4 years in college. Who the hell does that? Mirotic played professionally in what is considered the second-best league in the world in Spain. He won the Rising Star of the Year award twice there as the best player under 23 years old. So he enters this year. I believe he turns 24 this season. McDermott turns 23 this season, I believe.
That sounds about right.
So those dudes are not – I mean, they're not young. It's not like they drafted – Zach LaVine and James Young. You know what I mean? They didn't draft 18 and 19-year-olds. They drafted dudes who are a little bit older. So I guess the question is, Jason, how much do you expect to see Mirotic and McDermott, and what do you think their impact will be? Like, will those guys who were brought in to help the offense, which was the offseason's main objective, be on the floor if their defensive rotations aren't pristine every single time? Will they play every game like it's Game 7, which is basically Thibodeau's mantra? Or are they going to get buried and we're going to roll out a crunch time lineup of Rose, Kirk Hinrich bricking shots, Jimmy bricking shots, Gibson over Powell, and then Noah?
Well, I feel like that crunch time lineup is basically a definite to happen to start no matter what because Kirk Hinrich, Bulls were very happy to have him back despite significant offers elsewhere, says Gar. I guess you said he opened like a media day with that.
That pissed me
Classic.
off so much.
That's
I wanted
that's
to go off when I heard that.
so that's classic Gar Foreman Bulls talk there. But anyways, back to McDermott and Mirotic. I feel like I have more faith in McDermott playing more than Mirotic. That just because I feel like the Bulls just really, really love Doug. They clearly scouted him for a while. Tibbs coached him for Team USA, or this like the select team, whatever that. What was that exactly he played with last year? The
That
McDermott
was the
played under
select
Tibbs.
team last
Okay,
year in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So I mean, he does have some experience playing under Tibbs. Like he'll work hard for sure. Obviously, he's a little limited athletically in terms of defense, but I feel like he can at least work hard enough, become at least a passable enough defender where his offensive skills are needed on this team. Just the shooting, spreading the floor for a guy like Rose, that's huge. So I feel like, I guess the guys in front of him, Dunleavy, he's a veteran. I feel like Dunleavy will start the year, but I feel like Doug at least has a chance to take some of his minutes. He could take some of Butler's too if he doesn't improve enough offensively, and Tibbs allows Butler to actually take a seat. And then Tony Snell, he's still a big question mark as well. So I think Doug has a good opportunity to at least play, given good health. In terms of Mirotic, I mean, he proved a lot in Spain. His last year with Real Madrid kind of ended not too well. I don't know all the exact details of that, but I think just the biggest problem with Mirotic is like you have three bona fide, really good players ahead of him. Joakim is Joakim. Taj became one of the better two-way forwards in the league last year, and Pau, after it looked like a few years ago when he was done, it looked like he had a nice bounce-back year, even if it wasn't a bad team. So, I mean, Pau can still fill it up offensively. Joe's Joe, and then Taj is a solid two-way player. So it's hard to see where those minutes are going to come from in the front court unless there's an injury. And if there are, I mean, I guess Noah and Pau both have injury problems. So if they get hurt, then obviously Mirotic will have to play. But given decent health, I think it'll be tough for Mirotic to at least correct that rotation to start.
All right, two things here. For one, Thibodeau and Rose both mentioned that they've never had a stretch four before, and that idea was really intriguing to him. Rose just brought it up out of nowhere. He's like, yeah, I've never played with the stretch four my entire career. I think a guy who can do that's going to open up the floor so much for me. So I do think that if Mirotic doesn't fuck around in practice, that he's going to get a shot eventually. It might not come until February or March. It might not come until the second season. But I think that his skill set is really valued by both Thibodeau and Rose, so much so that he's going to get a shot. As long as he doesn't sabotage himself, he'll get a shot.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he'll be buried or anything like that. I think he'll get at least some minutes early, and then he might get a chance to get more, especially, like I said, if guys get hurt and he has to fill in for a game-to-game basis, and if he can prove himself there, that he'll earn more minutes.
You still with me, Jason?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so then McDermott, on the other hand, you also brought up the Team USA Select Camp, and that's the reason why I can see McDermott getting some burn there. I suppose it's sort of going to come down to what you're going to do with the twos and the threes. So you basically have Aaron Brooks running point guard on the second team. You have Heinrich and Tony Snell as the twos, and you have McDermott as the three. But they could play Snell at the three, Heinrich and Brooks together in the backcourt. Here's something that we just know is going to happen. The first sub of the game is going to be Kirk Heinrich, and he's going to check in for Dunleavy, and then they're going to have Heinrich and Rose in the backcourt, Jimmy at the three. That's going to be the first sub, right? There's no doubt about it. You agree with this?
I don't know. Probably, because I know Tibbs loves the 2-point guard lineup. When Rose was healthy, I mean, they did it all the time last year when Rose was hurt. They did it when he was healthy. And I don't want to believe it just because I just feel like, I mean, Kirk is fine if he's the backup point guard and he's playing 15 minutes a game, that's fine. But I just don't want to see him out there playing the 2-guard and playing 20, 25 minutes a game. I just feel like there's enough other decent options on the team where that shouldn't happen. But, I mean, I guess if it does happen, it would not surprise me,
no. Yeah, I just feel like it's bound to happen regardless. There's no way around it. Heinrich's going to be the first sub. See, like, the 2 point guard lineup is dope when you have Russell Westbrook and Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, and that's when it's really nice.
Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe. But when one of the point guards is Kirk Heinrich and he's just going to, like, dribble the ball off his foot or just, like, hold on to it for 18 seconds, I personally never want to look at Kirk Heinrich again the rest of my life. I think that I dislike him more than Boozer because at least you know Boozer wasn't going to be on the court at the end of the game no matter what, whereas Heinrich is going to finish games.
Yeah, I mean, that I have almost no doubt. Like, to start the year, that they're going to have Rose and Heinrich out there to end games. That happened last year. It will probably happen this year. That's why I'm just kind of hoping, like, a guy like Doug or even Snell, maybe if they can prove themselves enough where they can play the 2 or whatever, Jimmy is at the 2 and McDermott's at the 3, something like that, just to give him a little more firepower out there. I mean, Kirk isn't the worst player in the world. It's just like he's not a guy you want out there closing games. We saw it last year. I mean, the playoffs he choked at the line. It's just not enough of a threat at this point in his career. He's a decent player off the bench to give you some solid minutes as a backup. I just feel like Kirk Heinrich can't be playing significant minutes if you want to win a championship. So hopefully that we get some other guys to step up and we get some better lineups out there to close games or just whatever. Less Heinrich.
Yeah, all right. So let's move on to another one of these. Let me see if I can find a good question in here. All right. Where's the Bulls at this year? Bulls at this point, if they don't reach the conference finals, if they don't reach the NBA finals. You want to take a crack at this one?
You said what's disappointing?
Like what's the bar? Where do they need to achieve for you to be like, all right, good year?
I mean, I think anything less than the Eastern Conference Finals would be pretty disappointing. I mean, just on paper, they're at least the second best team in the East. I mean, I can't say they're better than the Cavs. Like, if they lost to the Cavs, obviously if they lost to the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals, it would be very disappointing, but it's not like it would be like a huge shock. I wouldn't expect them to be favored because, I mean, you're facing a team with LeBron, Love, and Kyrie Irving, and I feel like their depth is pretty solid, too. Obviously, they have some issues defensively in the front court. If Anderson Varejao gets hurt, they might be in some real shit if Love or Tristan Thompson's playing the 5 out there, not a whole lot of rim protection there. But they're just going to be so talented offensively that just that talent might be enough just to trump anything. So, I mean, I guess if they come short of the Eastern Conference Finals and lose like the second round, I think that'd be terribly disappointing given just the talent on the roster.
Yeah, now to me, it's all dependent on like how good's Rose? How much has Jimmy improved? Are we giving McDermott and Mirotic any minutes? There's a lot of factors at play there. Like, I think we're both confident the Bulls are going to win games during the regular season. At least we both are, I would say. But just because they always win games during the regular season, but. You know, this team, I think, has different strengths and different weaknesses than the teams that they've had previously under Thibodeau. So a lot of it is going to be on Taj and Noah to, like, cover up for poor wing defenders if they have, like, McDermott in the game. Or, you know, even Dunleavy to a certain extent. Like, I think that there's going to be more of an emphasis on Thibodeau's rotations, his zone. I expect Rose to be a good defensive player this year. I think the biggest thing working in the Bulls' favor is just that the Eastern Conference is trash. Like, looking at it, aside from Cleveland, who really scares you? I guess Charlotte and I guess Toronto.
There's a lot of teams that are just
those are good, the only three.
Good. There's just a lot of teams that are like good to like pretty good, but like I feel like the Bulls have a clear and Rose is mostly Rose and he stays healthy and the team mostly stays healthy. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the other teams, like I was thinking about this the other day, just like trying to think of the 8 playoff teams in the East, and you got obviously Cavs, Bulls, Charlotte should be really good, Toronto should be pretty good again. I mean, they pretty much brought everybody back. So as a top 4, I think that's a decent guess. Maybe the Heat, depending on what Wade is like. I saw that Wade said he wants to play 82 games this year. We'll see about that one. Doubt that's going to happen. But so if the Heat are 5, you got the Hawks should be pretty good. But I mean, do they really scary? Are they a threat to like beat the Bulls in a series. Maybe like Horford, Millsap are good, but so I don't know. And besides them, like the bottom of the conference, maybe you have teams like I don't think the Pacers will be in the playoffs. They should be pretty bad. The Knicks are like I could definitely almost see the Bulls getting the 1 seed, the Knicks being the 8, and having Bulls Knicks in the first round, which would be pretty awesome. Be able to smash them and laugh in Melo's face. But yeah, there's so many just decent to good teams, but nobody that's that great where it's like, wow, I'm really scared of any of these teams besides the Cavs.
Honestly, I think the Knicks are going to be trash. That team has no rim protection whatsoever, and they have Jose Calderon as their starting point guard, who's a very good offensive player, but that dude isn't going to be able to defend anyone, especially all the good point guards in the Eastern Conference. He's going to get torched again and again. They have no one to protect the rim. That team's going to blow.
Actually, I have to make an amendment to the Wizards. Can't believe we forgot to talk. The Wizards should be really good. I feel like they're a team that could possibly give the Bulls a whole bunch of trouble again. Because their starting 5 is really good. If Wall and Beal continue to get better, those 2 guys are just studs. They got Paul Pierce now, which is just for whatever they got in the mid-level or whatever the hell they signed him for. Like that's a really good signing to replace Ariza. So the Wizards, I feel like the Wizards could possibly be the 3rd best team in the East.
I want no part of the Wizards. I do not want the Bulls to see the Wizards in the playoffs again. That's just a bad matchup for them. Like, Wall is bigger and more athletic than Rose. They have no one who can check Beal still. Nene is a tough matchup for Noah. It's just a matchup problem. Yeah, and I'd much rather have Toronto thump. I think Toronto would thump the Wizards, honestly. So hopefully that. I don't know. I'm a believer in Toronto. I like Terrence Ross. I like Valanciunas.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need guys to develop more because I feel like they should have beaten the Nets last year, but they did not. So hopefully it would. They're definitely a good story. It's good to see the Kyle Lowry's awesome. DeRozan made a nice jump, and if Valanciunas can continue to develop, that's huge. Amir Johnson is really underrated, so that's definitely a good team. So yeah, they're another team though that's just like really good. But not like nothing near like with the Western Conferences with all those loaded teams.
Yeah. So my latest hot sports take is that the Phoenix Suns would have reached the NBA Finals last year if they were in the Eastern Conference, and they did not make the playoffs in the West. Hot take.
That is a pretty hot take because I don't know if they could have beaten the Heat even with.
They weren't good. They were not that good.
Still, obviously the Suns were really fun. They won 50 games, I think, but I feel like the Heat would have been good enough. LeBron was good. Wade was good in the Eastern Conference Finals, even if it wasn't against the Pacers. It would have been a fun series for sure. I feel like the Heat, we can say the Heat weren't that good just because the Spurs made them look really bad. The Spurs were out of this world in those finals. So, I would say that's definitely a pretty hot take. I don't know if it's scorching hot, but I don't know if I could agree with you there. But it would have been fun. It would have been fun to see. I wish we could have gotten rid of some teams in the East, even though the Hawks gave the Pacers a good run. I would like to see the Suns take the Suns and put them in the East playoffs instead of having them miss in the West. That would have been nice. But oh well, can't have everything, I guess.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else you want to address here?
I'm trying to think if there's any other questions we got here. I guess we could always talk about Rose, just expectations for him. We could talk about the World Cup a little bit, because I did get to watch a good amount of it. So I don't know how much you actually watched. I know you did do an article about him after it was all over. So I guess just what is your take on how Rose performed in the World Cup? Do you think there's any reason to panic about how bad he played, or just what have we learned, or anything like that?
Yeah, I still actually have a lot of faith in Rose. I really do. I just think it's going to take some time. He hasn't played basketball at all. He's played 10 games in 29 months, 10 regular season games. He hasn't played many more, even preseason or practice games besides for that. And this ties back into my ultimate worldview of the season, which is just that, I'm not going to freak out when Rose is shooting 37% from the field the first 2 months of the season.
I feel like it's almost inevitable. It's going to happen.
For sure. It's definitely going to happen. Uh, Part of his problem is that he's too reliant on these threes. So, like, if D Rose would have stayed healthy his entire career after he won that MVP, the three-pointer would have been the next step in his development of, like, all right, Derek, work on a reliable three-point shot, and then you'll, like, that's the final piece you need offensively. Now I feel like he still has the mindset of I need to shoot threes, but he shouldn't. His mindset should just be getting back to his bread and butter, what used to work, because he's never been a good three-point shooter. The dude is a power guard. He's good because he's bigger, faster, and stronger and more athletic than everyone else. He's not a jump shooter. He should get back to his bread and butter, which is the mid-range game, the floaters, all that stuff. And even yesterday, he was talking. He's like, yeah, I see Gasol on the floor. Like, I'm just going to be a spot-up shooter now. To me, that is terrible. I want Derek attacking the closeouts. I want him getting defenders off balance and beating them into the lane. I don't want him to be a spot-up shooter because he's not a good shooter. He's never been a good shooter at any point of his career, and he was a great player. He was the youngest MVP in league history without being a good three-point shooter. Dude, you don't need to be a good three-point shooter. Just don't take them. If he doesn't take them, I think he'll be a lot better. And I really think that jacking that many threes just throws off his mid-range game a bit, too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like obviously he doesn't want to eliminate all threes. I think having the three, just having the threat there of being a three-point shooter, he needs to keep that. But
I don't want 4 again.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. If he was taking 4, I feel like he was taking more than that, and I feel like he was almost taking 5 or 6 in his season. I have no idea, but hold on, I'm looking this up right now. 1 second. I feel like he was taking almost like 5 or 6 a game in his MVP year, and it was just like I don't care if he's like spotting up, taking wide open looks, like that's fine. But some of the threes he would take when he would just kind of like dribble into threes, and he would be like chucking up shots. Like, we don't need you to do that. Like, even though we said like, when he had all this time to work on his jumper, and a lot of times guys that miss time with ACLs will improve their threes. Like you said, I feel like he just doesn't need to do it. So yeah, he was taking 5 a game. He went from 0.83 point attempts in 2010 to 4.8 in his MVP season, and he only shot 33% his MVP year. I mean, if you take that down to like maybe 2.8, just chop off 2 of those bad threes he takes a game, and you said focus on the mid-range. Well, I think something that I think it was Kirk Goldsberry at Grantland did an article a week or 2 ago, like kind of looking when Rose really used that mid-range game as a huge weapon. He was, I think, 2010, he was like the best, I think one of the best, if not the best, mid-range shooters in the NBA. He shot like a ridiculous percentage. I know people talk about how it's the most inefficient shot in the game, but Rose was not inefficient with it. He was great with it. So it would definitely be great to see him get back to that and not shoot as many threes like you said. And I think it's just especially important now with these injuries that he relies on the floater and the mid-range more than all the time maybe going into the basket as hard as he does, just to save the wear and tear on his body. So he said less threes, more mid-range would definitely be huge for Rose. Absolutely. And especially after seeing him in the World Cup when he went like 1 of 20 on threes. That was not pretty.
Yeah. So like, I mean, just my prediction, I think Derek's going to get it back maybe in like February or March. I don't know if he's going to be like MVP good. I don't know if he's going to be top 10 players in the league good. But I think he'll be one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference. And it's just going to take some time. And I would like to tell the internet is always very rational and not reactionary. So the internet doesn't even need this advice. But I would say just don't freak out. Because, like, who gives a shit about the regular season? It doesn't matter. The Bulls will win games anyway. If they don't win games, they're still going to make the playoffs because the conference is miserable. And B, he's been gone for so long. Like, I know there's been, at least locally, like, I feel like whenever I talk about this with, like, the national folks, sort of thinks that I'm overblowing it to an extent. He has taken a ridiculous amount of criticism in this city over the last 2 years. And it all stems from the fact that he hasn't played basketball. That's the reason he's taking the criticism. Now that he's playing basketball, it's going to take him some time just to, like, learn how to play the game again. Everyone chill with the D-Rose talk. Let Derek do Derek, and I think eventually he's going to figure it out.
I agree with you as well. Like I feel like you said, it's almost inevitable that he's really going to struggle to start the season. He did it last year. He struggled in the World Cup. It'll take a while for him to get back to himself. So there's really no reason to panic. I feel like almost coming back this time before the Team USA World Cup stuff, there was so much hype with him coming back, just from Coach K, from Tibbs, from himself, from everybody. There was like, oh my God, like the expectations were raised again when they really shouldn't have been. So he'll start slow again. He's gonna need the time to get back. I feel like I don't know if he'll ever get back to ever when he was as good as he used to be. He definitely should be. I feel like he'll be good enough where he could be the best player on a Bulls team that wins the title because he does have more help now. So hopefully that he'll just will be able to stay on the court and hopefully that I guess just staying healthy is just obviously the biggest thing. It would be a killer if he got hurt again.
All right. Do we have anything else to talk about?
Trying to see if there's any more questions we got. I don't really think there are. I guess as I saw on Twitter, Rose has a new chef, so that's fun. Maybe that'll help him stay healthy.
Maybe so.
Oh, actually, no. We do have one more thing. That thing we talked about with the closing of the games, the lineup. I guess we kind of touched on this, but we saw some conversation on Twitter, just kind of going back and forth about who's going to close games for the. We were just kind of talking about how we expect Heinrich to do it, and just because it's Heinrich, but we have three legitimate starting caliber big men right now. We have Noah, Tibbs, or Taj, and Gasol. So you wonder who's going to close the game. And I've always thought that, or at least for now, I feel like Gasol will start, but Taj will close. Tibbs, I guess, called Taj one of the best fourth quarter player on the team last year. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that. Taj was awesome last year. He was so good, so much better than Boozer. But now they bring in a guy in Gasol where, I mean, he's been great for most of his career. So who do you go with at the end of games? Do you go with Noah and Pau? Do you go with Noah and Taj? I saw some people talking about how maybe it's going to be Pau will play the majority of the minutes and Joe and Taj will end up the ones splitting that time. So who do you think will close the game out of those three guys?
I expect Noah and Taj to close the game, and I think that Pau's going to have to take a seat. And then the rest of the team, I expect it to be Jimmy at the 3, Heinrich at the 2, Rose at the 1. Hopefully Heinrich will get supplanted by Snell or McBuckets at some point. But I think at least in the beginning, Heinrich is going to get supplanted because he's bad. Do you think Heinrich will be any better than he's been the last couple seasons? No, there's no way. He'll probably be worse. He's bad. He's objectively not good. And if they're losing that matchup, first of all, is a 2-guard, he's short. I don't think his lateral quickness is particularly good anymore. The one thing he can do is sort of deny dribble penetration, deny the drives, but if he's guarding 2 guards, he's going to be at a major size disadvantage, and that's just going to be tougher for him, especially when he doesn't have the lateral mobility anymore. He's a bad 3-point shooter. He holds onto the ball too much offensively. He just brings nothing to the table as far as I'm concerned. If you look at the checklist of what you want in a guard, he does none of those things. So I think that eventually he's going to have to
Uh-oh. Looks like Ricky just died, possibly. I think this has happened before with our friend SBN Ricky. Has some technology problems. But I kind of agree with what he was saying there just about Heinrich. I'm assuming he'll close games as well. I wouldn't go as far as saying he doesn't bring nothing to the table. He does offer some good things, but yeah, hold on one second. But yeah, I mean, so that's basically all we pretty much have for today. We might come back and do another kind of season-ish preview once we get closer to the season. I believe the preseason starts in, I think it's next week or so. It's kind of crazy to think that the games will be starting up pretty soon. And so hopefully we'll do another one of these in the next couple weeks or so before the season starts. Maybe we'll actually get Matt, your friendly Bulls blogger. Maybe he'll actually make an appearance on one of these. He said he would do one at some point. So I guess that's all for now. Looks like Ricky, like I said, looks like Ricky died on us. His computer probably froze or overheated. I know that happens some other time. So I guess that's all for now, and we'll talk to you guys next time.